Hello and welcome, property lovers, to yet another exciting episode of Space and Style, your gateway into the world of real estate, architecture, interior design trends, and much more. My name is Olamide Onifade, and today on our main discussion, we're going to be talking about off-plan sale in real estate transaction. And aside that conversation, our interior decorator will be sharing tips on how to take our DIY decor to another level. And lastly, on the show is the artisan spot of the week. And as usual, we have a craftsman who will take us through the nitty-gritty of his craftsmanship. But before we start the conversation, let's check out a unique property to inspire you to join the real estate ladder on the property of the week.
Welcome to our 5-bedroom duplex here in Chevron. Just take a look at the anteroom. Wow. We have the pantry. Come. Here's the pantry. Quite spacious. We have so many storage spaces here. So wow, this is beautiful, spacious. Just look at the cabinetry. This is the bathroom. Comes with a jacuzzi and a walk-in shower. And over here we have the floating vanity. I love this floating vanity.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. So, to discuss the intricacies of off-plan sale, with me today is a legal practitioner, Mr. Paul Anyinbowa, who is the principal partner of Sinclair LP, a law firm with specialization in real estate transactions and property acquisition. Thank you, Mr. Paul, for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much, madam.
So, how's practice been?
Well, it's been fine.
Has inflation in any way affected your practice?
Absolutely.
How?
Well,
Quickly, before we go into the main conversation, yeah.
Well, inflation has affected us in several ways. For instance, as relates to clients and patronages, when you give your bill. To a client, and you know, sometimes you don't anticipate that some clients do not want to go in immediately, only for them to come up 2-3 weeks later or a month
after you've labored and all that. They just
you know, and they want to proceed with that same bill you gave them. So, but we thank God we're moving forward.
Okay, so off-plan sale, what does that mean to a layman? Please, can you really explain what it means?
Off-plan sales in real estate transaction. Off-plan sale is simply the art of buying into or keying into a property that is under construction, or a property that has not, that the developer hasn't really started constructing, you know. And in that aspect, it infers that a buyer or a subscriber to such a property would need to rely on the architectural designs of that property in order to see or get a finished, an idea rather, of how the property would look when it's fully completed, you know. OffPlan is a viable venture. In a country like ours, it behoves on everyone. If you have the means, I would advise go into OffPlan purchase because not many persons would in their lifetime save up to 50, 60, 70, or 40, as the case may be, millions now, in order to accurately pay for a property. But via the instrumentality of an off-plan purchase, you can buy into your dream home without, at a very relaxed state.
Okay, so what you're saying is, even for the fact that you buy into something that is unseen, it still has its benefits.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll go into that, but I don't, if I have some other questions I want to ask before we get into that.
Okay.
So what are the critical areas that you must look into before deciding to jump on that train?
All right, the critical areas to look into. One, if I'm a buyer, for instance, and somebody introduces me to a property, the first thing I would do is to learn or have a grasp of the antecedents of that company. What are the antecedents? What have they been doing?
The reputation of the
What
developer.
is the reputation, how have they developed properties in the past? How have they been able to meet the yearnings of subscribers or buyers in the past? And what are the recommendations with regards to such companies? So when you want to buy into an off-plan purchase, it is imperative. Firstly, study the company. You have to study the antecedents, the track records of such a company. Because you wouldn't want to buy into a company that probably just started or probably have not, that you have not really reviewed, as the case may be. So that's one. Secondly, it's imperative to also seek professional advice. Very, very key. Professional advice. We have several disciplines, but you cannot be a master in all. So when you want to buy into an off-plan purchase, get a lawyer, get a surveyor, get people to advise you strategically on what you want to do. So you have to seek professional advice. You also would need to evaluate the title documents of such a property.
Okay, before we go into that, you just
Yes.
mentioned that we should seek the services of a surveyor. What's the business of a surveyor with an off-plan sale?
Okay, the business of a surveyor in tandem with an off-plan sale, for instance, it's to know. For example, you have properties that are caught in layouts, right? Industrial areas, what's it called? Residential areas, commercial purposes, and all of that. So when you get a surveyor, you'll be able to know where and how the layout of such a property is. Even though it's not under construction yet, you also be able to evaluate the survey. The land, the expanse of land must have been surveyed before construction. So you'll be able to evaluate the survey, critically understand, okay, is the survey, is it free from government acquisition? Is the area free? Can I go into it? Are there some skirmishes involved that, okay, with this I don't need to go into it. So you need to get a surveyor also, then a lawyer to understand their documents, to evaluate their documents, to study their documents, Then also you would need to conduct your due diligence. Well, this is where a lawyer comes into place. If your property is up for sale, okay, we have XYZ as documents for this property. You don't just go into it without having to conduct your searches, having to do your due diligence, in making sure that you are not buying into a problematic property. So you have to do your due diligence. And also, fourth, you need to ask the company, what are the modus of funding? How do you intend to fund this project? How do you intend to fund it? Some persons, or rather some companies would they obtain bank loans to fund their projects. Some other companies would want to bring in other subscribers. Just like you are coming in, other persons will have to come in for the project to keep moving forward. So it's imperative you ask the company what are the modes of funding this project. Then another critical area is the term of completion of the project. You also would have to look at that very critically. Of course, you are buying the property at your convenience, right? But then you also have to look at the term of
time schedule.
Yes, time schedule, within which the property will be completed. So I think we have quite a number of other areas, but for time
constraints. Okay.
Yes,
so what are the benefits of buying into an off-plan sale?
Okay, there are several benefits of buying into an off-plan sale. Quite immense. One, you get to buy a property or your property without breaking the banks. And
how does that work?
Okay, what I mean by that is you don't have to borrow, you don't have to take a loan. Okay, there are some companies that have, for instance, you pay 2 million to key into the project, you spread your payments for quite a number of months, some 24 months, some as the case may be. So you get to buy a property without having to break the banks. Not super expensive, so that's one of the benefits. Two, I think the benefits are actually interwoven. Two, you get to buy a property with which you pay for a long period of time. So that's where also convenience comes in. You are not under pressure. Yes, that's the word. You are not under pressure to pay up. So for instance, you key into a project and 24 months, you can spread the payments in tandem with what you earn or what you are expecting, and nobody is rushing you, sir. You have to do this, you have to do that. There's a schedule of payments, Then another benefit is, unlike a situation where you buy a finished property, at that point, when the property is finished, you have to break or do some alterations that would have effect on the foundation. In an off-plan purchase, you don't need to do that. While the building is under construction, you can make alterations. Okay, I want this here, I want the garden here, you can make some modifications on how the building on how you want your property to be built. So you come in, they may have a fashion. The real estate companies usually have a design for everybody, but then you can make some little modifications in tandem with, maybe you are having to add more money, just a little anyway, so as to make sure that, okay, when this property is built and completed, you have actually gotten what you want, as against buying a finished property. What they have there is what you buy.
Hold your thought, Mr. Anyinbowa. I hope I got it right. We'll be back after the break. Please stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, and you're still watching Space and Style, and we're still discussing the intricacies of off-plan sale in real estate transactions. So thank you, Mr. Paul Anyinbowa. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't murder the name. Yes, thank you for staying with us. So, at the time, you were talking about the risk, the benefits, and of course, anything that has benefits must come with risk. So, what are the risks involved?
All right. There are several risks involved in an off-plan purchase. However, the benefits outweighs the risk. I must be very frank. But one of the risks is you get to buy when the property is completed. It may not be in tandem with your standard.
With your standard,
yes,
okay.
With your standard, yes. And at that point, you are left with little or nothing with regards to what to do at that point, So that's one of the risks involved in buying an off-plan property. Then secondly, if you intend to renege on the agreement, mind you are paying money every month, perhaps you have paid up to 80% as the case may be, your money cannot be given back to you straight up. Yes. Most developers would like, okay, you have to wait, lest we sell the property and, make the returns available to you. Or some other persons would like, okay, even when we're making the returns available to you, would have to deduct some administrative charges as the case may be, so that's also one of the risks involved in buying an off-plan sale. Another one is the fact that a property developer is not a bank per se. They are not finance institutions. So when you put money, you don't expect interest when you want to, when you need or you have a cost to go back on your agreement with them. So the money that you put in, you should expect that if there's any eventuality and you have to...
There'll be no interest, so the money has depreciated.
Exactly, the money has depreciated as compared to when you, what it was when you placed it there. Then, of course, another risk is that the area in question where you have the property development, there can be, assuming there are fire, disasters, or other acts, what we call acts of God, for instance. Let's say you have wind, rainstorm, and all of that, and the property comes down. Probably you have seen that, okay, my property is already at 70% completion, and of course, we don't pray for anything.
Yes, Mr. Paul Anyinbowa.
Yes.
An example is what happened in Ikoyi last year.
Very well.
A lot of them subscribed off-plan to the sale. And look at what's happened. It was pulled down. So that's a classic example of what can go wrong.
Yes.
Wow. Because of time, we need to move quickly to the next topic. So in all of this, there are benefits, there are risks. As a smart person, how do I buy in a smart way?
Okay, how to buy in a smart way. The way to buy in a smart way is to do the smart things when you are called upon. And that is akin to the areas you have to also look at for. One, when somebody brings up, okay, I have a property to sell, after doing your due diligence and having the other checks, you don't wait for it. You invest. If you are sure that, okay, this property is without encumbrances, it meets your location, because when you buy real estate, you buy location. When you buy real estate, you buy future, So if you are confident that, okay, this property is in tandem with what I want, it's in this suitable location, and futuristically, 2 years, 3 years from now, this property would have astronomically, the price would have increased, So what do? You move smartly. So the way to buying in a smart way is to invest at the earliest opportunity. Yes, is to invest at the earliest opportunity.
So what about precautions that you should take so that you don't fall into the pitfall of breaches and all of that? What are the precautions? The
precautions, that's why I said, I made mention of having professional advice. There's no way you have a lawyer, there's no way you have engineers, there's no way you have surveyors that you would and fall into all of those pitfalls.
So how can you cater for example, when the property is completed, it doesn't fall into your expectations? So at the inception, how are you supposed to cater for this kind of breaches? Okay, that's a very critical area also. I usually advise when you have an off-plan purchase to invest in, get an independent engineer, get an independent evaluator. Let the person be into the building line, If possible, from time to time, maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, the engineer can go there. Okay, site engineer, my engineer is also here to supervise what you people are doing. And at the points where you notice that, okay, this is not going in tandem with what we had discussed or agreed upon, then you can raise alarm. So the way to avoid some of those precautions at the earliest is when you want to invest or when you have invested, get an engineer. And you can be sure that, okay, the engineer will not, of course, compromise.
You will not compromise. Yes.
So to the last question, in all of this, what are the legal remedies available when there is where there is a breach, not even potential breach, when there is a breach? Sometimes, as we have said, it might not be up to expectations, substandard. Sometimes they might not even deliver at all. Sometimes there might be delay in the completion period. Sometimes the company can go into bankruptcy. So what happens to the money?
Okay.
What recourse does a potential buyer have?
Okay, this is a very pivotal area also to look out for. When you have an engineer, as in the case of the property coming up still under construction, and the engineer notices that, okay, the developer is doing something else outside of the contract or the agreement you had with the person, at that earliest opportunity, raise alarm. You know, so some of the legal remedies are that you can, before we go into litigation and all of that, you can use the ADRO mechanism to resolve the impasse or the problem, as the case may be. You know, so this infers that, okay, your attorney would have to meet with theirs on a round table discussion and have a way towards ameliorating or finding a solution to the problem. Also, the contract is very imperative. The documentation involved, your deed of assignment or your contract of sale, since it's an ongoing project, is very imperative. The covenants there also should make provision for eventualities, you know. So then the completion period needs to be clearly stated. You don't say, okay, this property will be completed in the shortest possible time. The time frame needs to be clearly stated. You have to put, okay, is it March, April, May, within this year and what year, you know. So those contracts, those covenants needs to be stated in your agreement so as to make sure, okay, where the developer has done X, Y, Z, you revert to the agreement you had with him. Then the last one will be to approach the court for another specific performance. Okay, Oga, you told me when I came in that you would do X, Y, Z. So you approach the court. The court should mandate him to perform specifically in tandem with what he had agreed with you. Or also you can sue for damages, you know, general damages, monetary damages, and all of that. Yes, so these are some of the remedies that are available.
Wow, Mr. Paul, Anyinbowa, we have run out of time, and I really, I hope that, I was hoping that we could extend time, but we've done very well, and I hope we'll come again when we have issues around off-plan sale or any other issue. So thank you so much for coming.
So much. It's a privilege.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time and we have come to the end of our conversation with our guest. And I believe that you have gained more knowledge and insight on what to do when involved in an off-plan sale transaction. And this takes us to the next segment of the show. Let's hear what our interior decorator is preaching to us this week.
I'm Dr. Morenike Basharu, Creative Director and founder of Dewey Options Limited, which is an interior design company. So today we're going to talk about colors. We're going to talk about color psychology in interior design. So when we talk about the elements of design, we talk about space, we'll talk about form, we talk about colors, and so many other things. So today I'm going to focus on colors. Now, color is very important in interior design because you can use it, you know, to create an ambience or to affect the mood of the people that are going to be in the space. So you can have colors that you get into a space and you're really energetic, like the color red. You have colors that you get into a space and it's playful, like the orange or the yellow color. You have colors that you get in a space and it's kind of serious, like the blue or the black color, you know, and there's some colors that you don't want to use too much of it in some situation. For example, if you're decorating a nursery, you don't want to use too much of the color yellow because it's an irritable color. So you can put, if you put too much yellow in a space, you can have your baby cry. And you don't mind using the color yellow in a study, right? Then in another situation where you have old people in a house. So many times when you're designing a space, it's important you know who are the people that will use the space. So for example, if I'm going to have a space where I'm going to have an elderly person stay in, you don't want to use the color red, because of the color red can actually increase blood pressure. It can make you overtly excited. So you don't want to use a color like that. You want to use colors, and you don't want to use white. You know, as beautiful as white looks in a space, you don't want to use it for someone that is really old, because it can make that space look too bland and a bit, put them on that edge, you know. So colors, there are study colors that you can use in a space on which you can lay other colors on. Colors like the white color, you can use black, you can use gray, you can use different shades of these hues, right? And when we use the color white or black, for example, you want to put other colors on it, you know, to kind of put like a burst of color, right? So if I have a white room and I put a bit of black in it, and I want to put like a touch of red in it, depending on the people that are using the space. So when we are designing a space, it's very important to understand what the space is going to be used for. It's important we understand the kind of people that want to stay in that space.
Space and style.
I hope you enjoyed the tips given by our amiable interior decorator, and I hope you incorporate them into your DIY interior designs. And lastly on the show is the artisan spot. Let's hear from a highly skilled workman on his work craftsmanship.
Actually, pé kí nǹkan wá nǹkan ṣe ni pé a fẹ́ báyàn máa tajà náà ni mí náà ń báyàn tajà gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọmọọṣẹ́. So láti bẹ̀ mo ti rí pé ọ̀nà tèmi náà lè ṣe léléyìí mo dẹ̀ fojú sí. I spent like 15 years lọ́dọ̀ ọ̀gá tí èmi náà wà kó tó di pé mi náà dómìnira ti tèmi náà. Actually ẹni tó bá lówó ó lè tà àmọ́ ó gbọ́dọ̀ train nípa ẹ̀, ó gbọ́dọ̀ mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀, torí pé bí situation Nàìjíríà ṣe rí nsìn, tí o bá ní o kówó lórí ọjà kan tó mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀, bóyá kíní ẹ̀ ti fall nínú market nsìn ò mọ̀, tí wọ́n kàn lọ ra, tí wọ́n bá fẹ́ ta tiẹ̀ nsìn wàá tà ní bad price ni, àfi kó mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀. So bó ṣe ń lọ wàá mọ̀ quality, wàá mọ̀ quantity, pé tí n bá rà tó báyìí iye báyìí náà lè dí mi lórí ẹ̀. Tó o bá ti mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀ o lè ṣe, àfi kó train nípa ẹ̀. It's all imported. Local wa náà wà but kò tí ì pọ́ńtà bí imported. The same thing, even tá bá ní ká tún fojú wò nsìn ní local one títí wa gan ó yìí fẹ́ stand ju foreign lọ, but kò ń ṣe nǹkan tí tó wà famous táwọn èèyàn ti mọ̀ lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀. Àwọn èèyàn ń fi ojú pé local títí wa náà fi ń wò. Tó bá ká wo how long durability rẹ̀ bó ṣe long sí, tiwa gan sì tún ní àlàáfíà ju ti foreign one lọ. Fún àwọn táǹtà ń sìn àti wádìí lọ́wọ́ àwọn tó ń lò, wọ́n ti sọ fún wa, even ẹlòmíì tó mọ̀ ọ́nù wọn máa ń request ẹ̀ pé nírú eléyìí o nǹkan báyìí ni kò bá mi wá, thickness ẹ̀ ó ju ti foreign lọ, torí ní foreign yẹn àwọn náà máa fún wọn ní measurement nǹkan táwọn fẹ́ látọ̀hún yẹn wá, but ti local ti wá ń sìn kó size tí a ti ń lò láti pẹ́tipẹ́ làwọn yẹn sì ń ṣe, àwọn náà kàn lè dídí ẹ̀kú ń bẹ̀, so quality yẹn sì wà ń bẹ̀, bóyá heavy bóyá strong sí.
We have come to the end of the show this week. I am Olamide Onifade, and thank you so much for watching. Until I see you again next week, this is Space and Style.